Please remain seated. The show will begin in 3, 2...
Like a Hellcat.
Hi, I'm FandomTraveller87.
Wanna hear a ghost story?
(10:15 p.m.) Nicole, Renee, and Clementine made their way to the house of the late Aaron McGrimley. To give you an idea about the layout of the property, there was Aaron McGrimley's one-story cabin. Located on the left of it was the big red barn, and on the right was a boathouse with one single boat still intact near the water, and further down the opposite path would lead straight to the bridge, further out to the lake. Clementine stopped dead in her tracks. She shined the light of her lantern above the tree line directly at a cave entrance, right directly behind the cabin, which was a little high up on a mountaintop.
Alright girls, listen up. We're going to thoroughly search the cabin first. I don't want anyone splitting up, you understand?
Renee and Nicole looked pale. They nodded in hesitation. I have a really bad feeling about this. But maybe we should reconsider our options and just go back to camp. Well, I think that we should trust Clementine on this one, said Renee. Besides, like she said before, we can't go swimming our way back to camp, not with that banshee out there. And we don't have a boat or anything, and we certainly can't just go back to that underground tunnel, not with all those dead people still down there. All I'm saying is that we should have maybe thought this through a bit more. I mean, come on, you have any idea how dangerous this is?
Come on girls, let's go.
One by one, the girls carefully treaded up the rickety steps of the front porch. The girls then approached the front door, inspecting the rusty doorknob with the lock on it. There was also ponderous chains wrapped around it, with a keep out sign. Clementine then reached into the left pocket of her torn blue jeans, taking out a hairpin and messing with the lock until she heard a small click sound, and removed the lock from the doorknob, and then slowly removing the chains, which all hit the floor with a loud thud. Clementine then put her right hand on the doorknob and pushed her weight against the door gently, and the door creaked open. The girls took brisk but very cautious steps, almost tiptoeing gradually as their eyes scanned their surroundings. There was old furnishings and paintings on the walls. Everything was practically covered head to toe in cobwebs and green mold. There was even a half-open fridge in the kitchen that was adjacent to the living room. There was rancid food still remaining on the one intact shelf inside of the fridge. There was also centipedes, spiders, cockroaches scattering along the inside, as well as crawling amongst them on the wood floor, as their footsteps caused a creaking sound on the old rickety planks. There was a black-lit candle sitting on the coffee table near the fireplace. A strong gust of wind came into the room right where the girls were standing, and the candle blew out suddenly. And then the door slammed violently. Renee shrieked and leaped into Nicole's arms quickly, but Nicole just looked at her friend as though if to say, "Seriously?" Renee then chuckled sheepishly and got off of Nicole as Nicole put her back down, and the girls looked over at Clementine. "So what is the first clue supposed to be?" Nicole had asked, crossing her arms. Clementine sat her lantern down and started rummaging through drawers.
We need to find the murder weapon.
Clementine then checked the drawer and reached her hand inside, pulling out a stack of envelopes that were held together with a piece of string tied around them. Clementine then reached into the pocket of her leather jacket, pulling out her switchblade. She pressed the button and flicked up the blade, then cutting off the string and shuffling through the envelopes. All of them were addressed to a woman named Rebecca McGrimley. Clementine sat down in a chair and opened up the first envelope, reading a letter. It seemed to be written by a male. Clementine cleared her throat, and her friends gathered around her as Clementine began to read the letter.
I warned you, Rebecca, but you just couldn't listen to reason. You should have never been born. This family has always had boys. They are strong, dependable, and loyal. And you are nothing but weak, fragile, and pathetic. Soft-minded. You are the tainted seed of your mother's transgression, her betrayal against me. And you've allowed the son of my arch-nemesis to steal the treasure, one that is rightfully mine. I've worked hard for it, and I will not be screwed over again, not by you, him, or anyone else. I will make you pay. They all will pay for double-crossing us.
Nicole then placed her hand on Clementine's shoulder. "Andrew Bills was a very strict Catholic man," said Nicole. "In his family, there was one sacred tradition that always had to be followed, and that was that all women in the household had to have sons, not daughters, because men were seen as the golden children, while the girls were seen as abominations. There was never a good reason as to why Andrew had something so much against females, but perhaps it's because of his own grudge that he had against women in his life that, well, didn't treat him right or something."
Ugh. Seriously, no female children were allowed to be born within the family? That's just insane.
"Oh, it just gets worse from there, Clementine."
Okay, I'm listening. Tell me, what more do you know?
In 1981, just 2 weeks before Christmas, Rebecca Mills was pregnant with her first child, a baby girl.
Oh no. What happened?
According to police reports, it was around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Aaron McGrimley was in the barn tending to his cows, and Rebecca was in the kitchen preparing tea. And then, well, her father showed up. He was in a blind rage, demanding to see Aaron. Now, Rebecca and Aaron would always have these nasty arguments in regard to treasure. His obsession with it changed him into becoming more of an irate and delusional person. And it would always just make him become extremely violent and verbally abusive with anyone, including his wife.
Did Rebecca's father have proof that the treasure belonged to his family?
Not that I know of. There was never any proof at all. The problem was that Rebecca's father always made up some sort of reason why he didn't like Aaron to begin with. So I guess he used the treasure as an excuse to make his daughter's life miserable. Clementine then shined her lantern right by the entrance of the front door. There was still a rusty brown reddish stain that was embedded in the wood.
Now, Aggie mentioned to me the night that Aaron came home from doing milk deliveries, he found his room ransacked and his father was holding out a will and testament.
Aaron's mother, Esmeralda, wrote him that will. She was going to leave him $150 million, as well as her estate in Montana. Aaron's mother left him her journal, which she had hidden away in one of those crates, which had the will inside. So Aaron had tried to hide it from his father, so it was kept a big secret up until Aaron's father got suspicious and searched his whole room and practically destroyed it in order to get to the will. And those two fought over it, and supposedly Aaron had disposed of his father. It was rumored that Esmeralda was unfaithful to Aaron's father. Word got around that she was being seen spending a lot of time with one of the members from the Mills family, although his identity even to this day remains unknown, and there was never had been any substantial evidence of her infidelity. But Aaron's father, even though to some he was talking out of his butt and lying through his teeth, he believed that, and well, he felt as though he should have been compensated for his own grievances that Esmeralda supposedly caused. And so, ever since 1927, the Mills and the McGrimleys have always been sworn enemies. There was always something for them to argue about, whether it was a dispute over land or property being taken away wrongfully. And they would always just point the finger of blame whenever there was ever any sort of misfortune, whether it was sickness, death, or injury, or crops going bad. There was always something that was always somebody else's fault. And maybe if they looked deeply into themselves, they probably would have found the real true root of the problem. But you know what paranoia does to a person? And the police just couldn't take it anymore, getting all these numerous phone calls from either of the family members from both sides. And there was so much he said, and he said, he did this and he did that. And, well, they just quit coming. And the families were just left to deal with the problems on their own.
Now, getting back to Rebecca Mills. You said that she was pregnant. Did Aaron know that he was going to be a father?
Well, Rebecca never had the chance, because when her father came onto the property unannounced and was going to confront Aaron about the treasure, those two got into it real bad. And Rebecca was struck in the face by her father's fist, and Aaron flew into a rage. And according to some speculation, Aaron had beheaded Rebecca's father. Rebecca was mortified at the sight, and she tried to calm down her husband. She even tried to run away, in fact, when he turned on her. But something in him possessed him to do the most unspeakable thing. It said that Aaron had dragged his wife over to the lake, and he drowned her. And then he had dumped her corpse there, and it sunk all the way to the bottom, and that's where, to this day, it stays. It was never recovered, but nobody ever thought to look there for Rebecca. And Aaron, of course, was still being investigated, even for his father's death, and now he had another possible murder charge on his hands. But nobody could prove anything, so nobody tried.
So then, what became of Aaron McGrimley?
Well, just a few months later, construction began for Camp Carnegie. Aaron McGrimley was forced to sell everything that he owned, his island home, the lake, and the land surrounding it, because he could no longer afford to make payments. And so the bank practically sold all of his property to the Carnegie family, who was already in the process of finishing construction of the camp, which began just some time prior before, well, Aaron was going to be given the boot. And he had made several desperate attempts to get the treasure in order to persuade the bank to change their mind, but he failed. And, well, Aaron retaliated. He had refused to leave, and it said to get back at the Carnegie family who practically had screwed him over. Well, let's just say a lot of kids went missing the very first week of camp, and there would always be shoes found in the lake just floating. And, well, that's when all that trouble began once more, ever since 1927.
How much do you know about Barbara Carnegie?
Barbara Carnegie has been in the business of land management for the past 40 years. And she's had this camp since 1981. And, well, since 1967, when she was just 25, she saw a lot of investment opportunity in purchasing this huge plot of land, all these acres. And she always wanted to run and manage her own camp, and it was something that has been family owned ever since. And when Aaron McGrimley had passed, well, things were going good for a while. Things have calmed down, and there were no more strange incidences, and everything was running smoothly. And then activity started picking up again. More and more campers would go missing. Then the girls heard something outside. Thunder began to roar loudly, and rain was heavily falling. The girls then heard that familiar wailing coming from the lake towards the house. The cabin began to quake violently, portraits on the walls quivering and shaking, then collapsing to the floor, glass shattering. All the girls were terrified. They didn't know what to do. Clementine then walked over to one of the windows and peered out, shining her lantern. It was pitch black outside. She didn't see anything, nor anyone. But the wailing, it picked up again, carrying along with the winds that traveled around the cabin, making the floorboards creak and moan. And it grew louder and louder as it came closer and closer to where the girls huddled. Clementine held her breath, and she crouched down underneath the windowsill as quickly as she could. Then, gesturing to the other girls, with placing her index finger to her lips to silence them, and then slowly gesturing them with a small wave to get them to follow her to the hall closet. Renee and Nicole looked at each other and both nodded, silently in agreement, as all the girls got up on their hands and knees and they crawled in the direction of the hall closet door. They made sure to gather up all of their stuff so they wouldn't leave anything behind, in case if things got a little bit crazy. And, well, as afraid as they were, they knew that this is what they had to do. They had to hide. And so Clementine slowly rose, turning the knob of the hall closet door, and she practically gave everyone a gentle shove, and then she shut the door behind them, pressing her back up against the door to keep it shut, hoping and praying that whoever was out there wouldn't find them. Then suddenly, whack, 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 the sound of an axe, the splintering of wood, as though someone was trying to break in. The girls' teeth clenched, their bodies as stiff as a board. They quickly shut their eyes as they held each other close, unsure of what the next step would be. But they couldn't. They didn't want to risk it. Then another whack, 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 until finally the cabin door creaked open. Then, barely hanging on to its hinges, off of the doorframe, the cabin door fell forward and collapsed, and a shadowy figure came into the room. A brush of cold, freezing cold air seeped underneath the crack of the hallway closet door. Then Clementine was struck with this god-awful stench. The smell of deer carcass filled her nostrils. Rotting, disgusting. And Clementine softly gagged as she pinched her nose, as well as the other two girls, who all looked at each other in bewilderment. And then Clementine slowly glanced down at the crack in the hall closet door. She saw two black, moldy, dirty and muddy leather boots belonging to a man. That's when it hit her. Was it Aaron McGrimley? His ghost coming back from the dead to avenge himself? Then, in wet, sludgy, fluid movement, the footsteps of the male figure faded away in the opposite direction of the hall closet. and all grew silent. And then Clementine swallowed hard, gulping nervously as she slowly turned the knob once more and opened the closet door just slightly, peeking out. The coast was clear, and so she gestured for the other two girls, and, well, they all hightailed out of there, going down the rickety steps of the porch, and just making sure they left nothing behind, of course. That was valuable. And then they leaped and just sprinted, not stopping for one split second to catch their breaths. They just couldn't. Clementine, Renee, and Nicole ran all the way to the other side to the boathouse that was sitting on the water, and they inspected the boat. It wasn't like a canoe or anything, it was just a regular speedboat, which was missing a spark plug. And none of them had ever operated a speedboat before, but, well, this was their ticket out of here, and it was the safest thing. What else was there to do? Again, they could not just swim however many meters there were to get to camp. Not with a banshee that could possibly drown either one of them, or at least try to. And none of them was going to take that risk of putting the other person in danger. Renee fortunately had the solution to their problem. She reached into the left pocket of her shorts and pulled out a spark plug. Clementine and Nicole arched eyebrows, looking at her strangely, as though a bit surprised.
Where did you get that from?
I found it lying on the grass outside the barn, Renee explained. Good thing I found it, huh? Now let's get out of here, fast. Clementine quickly inserted the spark plug and made sure that all the other doohickeys and other buttons and the cord itself was working. And she finally had gotten the boat started, and they all hopped in. And then Clementine started the boat. Then off they went, towards the direction of the camp.
Whew, what an adventure, huh, girls? Now we're finally...
Clementine? I think we got trouble. There was a loud splash in the water.
No. This is not happening right now. This is not happening right now.
Then after 10 minutes, something had smacked right into the left side of the speedboat. And something cut the engine. It stopped. The boat had stopped. Clementine, what are we gonna do? All three girls just sat there and just waited. They were listening carefully. And then some sort of force was trying to push the speedboat over. Someone or something was trying to tip the boat and knock all the girls into the water.
For more awesome content, like and subscribe now.
This concludes this part of the story. Stay tuned for more, guys. Until next time. Bye.